The lights in the harbor don't shine for me. I'm like a lost ship adrift on the sea. The sea of heartbreak, lost love and loneliness.
I grew up in a very musical household, and my mother was singing every day. So I started singing early too. I did try to play guitar, not very well, but I have learned how to play drums, and I can keep a hell of a good beat. I wanted to learn to play drums because when I go in the studio, I wanted to know how a drum kit is set up and why. So now I can keep a beat and I know where all the drums are supposed to be set. So it's really helped me, especially in understanding arrangements of songs and why the dynamics of a song will move, and understand also the formulas that work in pop music. But in fact, I grew up in a household that had an opera singer for a mother and a technician for a father. And my father used to build the home stereo equipment in our home. So when I was 2 years old, he gave me a microphone and turned on the tape recorder that he built, and he recorded me talking into the microphone and making an echo effect, a sound-on-sound effect. And I was mesmerized, and it really made an imprint on me, obviously. Later on, I used to take cassette recorders and make little radio shows by recording on one and then playing that back while recording on another, and doing narration and adding sound effects and music from records on the record player. When I was in the university, I actually studied broadcasting and was more involved in radio. I began as an artist, an art major, but when I discovered music and how much fun it was to be a part of the radio station, I abandoned my art interests and went straight into music and radio. It was the beginning of the punk era, so I was involved in a lot of punk rock and started a band that I was in that was a punk band. Because I knew something about recording, I recorded my band, and it came out pretty good. Then other people said, hey, will you do my band too? I wound up doing a lot more of other people's music than my own, and in fact, other people's music was much better than mine, so I continued doing that. And it led to moving to Los Angeles and then continuing on to where I am today.
Take me and keep me away from the sea.
In the United States, I'm a member of an organization called NARAS, or NARAS, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. This is very much like the AATIA in Argentina, in that we're advocating for the rights for producers, engineers, and musicians to the music and the copyrights. So this organization has made great progress in the United States in securing rights for all people involved in the making of music. And in saying that, I think that the engineers and producers need to be recognized for their contributions in making music, because they define the sound of an artist. Oftentimes, a producer will directly have creative decisions made in the studio on how an artist presents themselves, the sounds and the instrumentation. They should be recognized for that and credited for that, as well as compensated through royalties, and that's what we're working towards. This organization that I told you about, National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, the Producers and Engineers Wing is headed by a woman named Maureen Droney. And she's been a big influence on my career. I've known her for the last 35 years. I used to stalk her in the parking lot of the studio she worked at way back when in San Francisco. I used to watch her coming in and out of the building, and I thought to myself, I want to do that type of job. This is what I want to do. So I got to know her. I hired her actually to mix my band at one time, and we've kept in touch all these years, and now she's done very well for herself with the Grammy organization, And so I can say that she was a big influence on my life. Also, a mixer named Alan Meyerson, who does big movies in Los Angeles and works for Hans Zimmer. He was very influential. And then later on, Rick Rubin really helped define my own style for recording.
Sea of heartbreak.
Digital technology has completely changed the way that albums are being recorded now. It used to be a very private club for engineers and producers because the equipment was so expensive that only a few people could afford to have a studio set up in a building that they would hire for people to come in. You were very lucky if you got to work on this equipment. So only a handful of people knew how to use it. Now today, digital recording is much easier to learn, to buy, and to set up for your own music or for someone else's music for you to make money. So it really has changed. The accessibility has changed. Also, the workflow has changed because, for instance, when I worked with Johnny Cash, we were recording vocals and his pitch is a little bit up and down, and the record that I worked with him was called Unchained with Rick Rubin. And I had to correct some of his pitch problems just because he was learning new songs and wasn't as precise as we wanted him to be. But in that day, we were using tape and using outboard equipment like harmonizers to change pitch. So I would have to actually record the vocal and then put it through a harmonizer, changing the pitch ever so slightly, and then record it back onto the tape. So I was changing pitch by a little wheel that I would move by 9 cents or 5 cents up and down. I would memorize the phrase and I would move it up and down to correct the pitch. Today, with digital technology, this can be done as simply as just moving your cursor up or down. It's a whole new world. It makes it much easier. It makes it too easy for some singers who don't really have the chops. But I think it's so much easier for the engineer and producer now to correct problems in the musicians' performances.
Some days you die.
A lot of women have concern over their right to work on an equal level with men, and I agree. This is a very important thing to work towards. I also think that we have to, as women, be very careful not to be overly offended and constantly upset with the behavior of men, because to be honest, men and women are very different. Let's just admit that this is true. And we are wired differently. So the motivations of women are different than men. It's very difficult for anybody to do the work of a engineer or producer because it's long hours in the studio, it's very little sunlight, and not a lot of social interaction. So I think perhaps most people are more interested in having a career that allows them more freedom to be a part of society instead of being locked away in a cave. I understand this. So where I want to help women in gaining their rights for the ability to do this work, and in fact, I think it's the best job in the world, and I would recommend for anyone to do this. This production, the music production, it's heaven every day. But be prepared for an uphill climb. It's difficult for both men and women to get into this career and to make money at it. I mean, it takes time. It might take 10 years before you start actually making good money. However, you may step into it and start making good money right away.
Some things are over, some things go on.
for everybody who is interested in music recording, I say go for it. It is the best job in the world. You will feel so lucky every day that you get to do this recording. And also keep your ears open. Always be aware of what's coming up ahead. And less talk, more listening.
You got a heart so big, it could crush this town, and I can't hold out forever, even